I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell politicians to give up the rooms. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth.
God, it's me. Can you hear my plea? Feeling like I'm lost in this world, can't you see? Demons creeping in, trying to take control of me. But I'm just trying to find the light, trying to break free. I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. But why you keep forgetting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feeling like I'm on a leash. Can't find no peace, find no peace. Living in hell, can't you hear my plea? I'm suffocating, can't you see? Why you let these false prophets roam free? While the well-run suffer, can't you see? I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Why you keep targeting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feel like I'm on a leash, can't find no peace.
Hardest battles, strongest soldiers, greatest burden, broadest shoulders, pushing up just like these boulders. This conflict like it's water, so this mercy, take my chalice, seeking grace through all this malice. All of these salty motherfuckers to give up.
Politics and sinners, they all the same.
Got me stuck in this endless game. But I won't give up,
won't play the role.
Gotta do what's
best for my soul.
I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell these politicians to give up the room. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth. Living wild but truthfully free. God keep on watching over me. Take my pleas and keep the receipts. I just want all of humanity to be free.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I know it's been a minute. It's Monday morning. But before we get into all that, we always start with independent music. And I have Don Tripp, DeLorean Freestyle, and we'll be right back right after this.
Back to the future, ain't no future if I'm back broke. Here stands my family's one last hope. Ain't what I asked for, but we from the trenches, so we gotta know them bitches up front and get you back though. You don't trust nobody else, back to looking out for self, cause you don't need a poker face when you playing solitaire. Memphis City hot as hell, my leather soft as cotton nail. Got so many shells, my garage look like a Taco Bell. Back to getting paid again, cut off all my lady friends, a $250,000 car. I started with a baby Benz, hand built to fully, got a trigger like a safety pin. Bitch, I got a gun safe, big enough for bathing in. Back to breaking all the rules, better yet I made my own. I don't wanna celebrate, I just wanna make it home. I just wanna pull up, pick up what I earned and take it home. Crazy busy wishing flesh, never had a lazy bone. Back to getting filthy rich and we behind schedule. $1 million ain't enough for me, I'ma need several. To dig what I'm spitting, you might need a bigger shovel. Bitch, I been a rider before I could even reach the pedals. Back where I belong, if anyone could've stopped me, they'd have tried. And anyone that tried would've died. All jokes aside, I'm riding with the flame on my side. Anybody want to smoke, I'll oblige. Back to spending every waking moment trying to educate my homies. All it take is dedication to make everything we wanted. I took every drop of hate them niggas placed in my circumference, and I let it make a motherfucking monster. Back into you niggas' worst nightmares. Scare you niggas straight. Fuck with me, I guarantee you meet your fate. Niggas wouldn't recognize the truth if it stared them in the face. Perfect timing even when I'm running late. Long live Pill. Long live Pill. Long live Pill.
Zach Feezy.
What they want?
That was Don Tripp, DeLorean Freestyle. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, it's Monday. The session's almost over, the legislative session. But what I want to get into first is how a fraud suspect was able to leave the country, even though he had did so much fraud. And I think people need to pay attention to this. And we'll be right back right after this.
A major Medicaid fraud trial in Hennepin County is now canceled after the defendant disappeared. Authorities are searching for Abdi Rashid Saeed, charged for his role in an $11 million scheme. And as Lou Ragoose is here to explain, all it took was $150,000 to avoid the consequences. Lou?
Julie, it was a bail amount lower than prosecutors wanted, and it came with no guardrails. Abdi Rashid Saeed had his passport and technically no travel restrictions.
Part of our culture to help people.
Abdi Rashid Saeed is the original personal care assistant company fraudster who stole taxpayer money while claiming to operate out of this mailbox at an office on Central Avenue in Northeast Minneapolis. After he was convicted in 2021 and ordered to have nothing to do with companies that receive Medicaid money, other PCA companies took his place at the Central Avenue office, and Saeed started receiving checks from them.
Were those checks for employment for you, Mr. Saeed?
No.
What were they for?
Loans.
At a probation violation hearing, Saeed claimed the checks were loans, including to pay back his restitution in the first fraud case. Investigators didn't buy it, and they charged Saeed, along with the owners of the other PCA companies, of racketeering, a conspiracy to steal $11 million of taxpayer money, uncovering text messages between them saying things like, "I'm going to overbill the hours."
No, Your Honor. Our culture is we trust one another.
Prosecutors also charged Saeed with perjury, and his trial Monday was set to be the crowning moment in the state's long investigation. But according to multiple sources, he has instead successfully fled the country. How? He had no travel restrictions. At a bail hearing after he was charged, prosecutors wanted to set bail at $1 million, but Judge Juan Hoyos gave Saeed two options: a $50,000 bond where he gives up his passport, or a $150,000 bond with no conditions. Saeed opted for the higher amount, and he kept his passport. Attorney General Keith Ellison in a statement saying, in part, "This is a deeply frustrating setback. However, I remain committed to doing everything I can to hold Saeed and the other Medicaid fraudsters accountable."
Also in the statement, Ellison said that they're working with federal law enforcement to try to locate Saeed and bring him to justice. My sources tell me that they don't know what country Saeed ended up in. One last thing, Julie, I just in the last hour discovered a document that the Attorney General's office filed before that bail was set, where they warned that Saeed's family lives in Kenya, his wife and his kids, and they worried that he would try to run.
I mean, I can just almost feel people at home shaking their heads and pulling their hair out. Why were there no travel restrictions? And also, what is $150,000 to someone who's allegedly stolen millions?
Right. Well, an unconditional bond means just that. There's no conditions on it. He could fly back and forth as much as he wants, technically. And remember, this is a state case, not a federal case. If it was a federal case, and it's happened, a red flag would fly up as soon as they book a flight, and then agents could go to the airport and arrest him before he boards the plane. But that's TSA.
The state has no such relationship with TSA.
Exactly. It's federal agencies talk to each other.
Because we had talked about this when all these trials began a few years ago. What's going to stop these people? We know so many of them purchased property in Kenya. What's going to stop them from fleeing? And you do think that federal relationship with TSA has stopped at the federal level.
We've reported on arrests that have been made at the airport, even on the tarmac.
Well, what about the state level? Do you think this will change going forward, where Ellison now say we want to keep passports, we want to make the...
I don't know that it's Ellison's choice. I know that they did push for the higher bail, so they wanted the higher amount in the first place. As far as that communication, that's I don't know where that goes from there.
So frustrating.
That's crazy to me of how our justice system is so broken. And what I mean by that is you have bails that poor people can't afford, and then we give bails to fraudsters or people with money, bails that they can probably actually pay. And that, to me, because what people don't understand is he used a bail bondsman. He had to pay $15,000 cash, and then the bail bondsman put up a note, a promissory note for $150,000. That's, to me, that's crazy. And I don't understand why our system is so, I know it's designed like this, but it's like over the past couple of years, our system is really showing itself for what it really is. And it's not about truth and transparency or accountability. So I think people need to really think about that. And especially when it comes down to voting and trusting people that say they're doing good for the community, but then you have all these extra stories about them, about how they're wasteful, about how they're fraudulent, and people don't want to believe that. And you need to pay attention. There's a lot of things that are being said that, to me, I don't think people are taking very seriously or even looking at it. But I think we really need to sit here and look at it, because there is people that are being fraudulent in our system. And when are we going to have a valid discussion that isn't emotional, that isn't where you can intimidate people? Let's just have a open conversation, because I understand truth is very hard pill to swallow. I understand it. I understand it. I understand that truth is a hard pill to swallow. And there's a lot of people that don't want to swallow that truth pill. They don't want to have to look in the mirror and be accountable for the shit that they've done. They don't want to look at themselves in the mirror. They don't want to be accountable for the harms that they've done to our community. That's why I look at these people, especially in the DFL right now, right? I see Cedric Frazier, Zanat Muhammad, Ilhan Omar, and other people endorse Amy Klobuchar. Now, with all the things that have come out about Amy and how she's done Black and brown men, why are we still trying to endorse this lady? Why are we still trying to promote her in front of our communities when we know that she's done shit to Black and brown bodies? She's railroaded them for her political career. The same thing with Keith Ellison. We can go all the way back to Jerry Hoff, who was a Minneapolis police department, who was a Minneapolis officer. And here's the one thing that people don't even understand. Keith was involved in, supposedly, they had got the shooter in Chicago. So him, Kerry Levin, Jerry McAfee all rode out there to go get him. Who paid for that? First of all, the news station did. And then they got paid for turning the shooter in, who turned up to be not the shooter. And still, the truth is a hard pill to swallow. And first of all, truth is not your innocence, and this is the fucked up thing that I've seen over and over and over again when it comes to cases from 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And you'll see now that their DNA, their evidence, their physical evidence was really weak. It was circumstantial. And first of all, it couldn't have been, just like in Mayan Burrell, Marvin Haynes, Edgar Barrentos. There are so many cases where we have proof that people were railroaded in our own communities by our Democratic politicians, and niggas ain't done shit. Same thing when it comes to the Black churches. Why are we so afraid to hold people accountable when they've done wrong in our communities? Why is it so hard? Because we'll talk about P. Diddy, we'll talk about Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty, we'll talk about all this Lil Durk and all that shit, but we won't talk about the same niggas that do the shit in our community. Y'all won't bring them up. Y'all won't bring up a Cortez Rice. You won't bring up a Tony, a Nakima. Like, this shit to me, I forget his name now. It starts with a J. But he's with CARE. And it's like, damn, Michelle Gross. These people have all done harms to our community, and we don't hold them accountable. The same thing with the story that I'm about to talk about now. This is about Zion Baptist Church in North Minneapolis, who right now is in an investigation of an employee that was at DHS, gave them grants, awarded them grants, and then quit. And these weren't small ass grants. There was over $2 million, and then there was a $672,000 payment. Like, are we actually going to sit here and are we just going to talk about it? Or are we actually going to try to do something about it? That's what I really, really want to know. Are we going to do something about it? Or are we just going to sit here and take it and not get any kind of control back of our taxpayer dollars? Because that's how the American Revolution started. The Boston Tea Party. When they threw all the tea into the sea, what that was about was people were mad that they had no representation, but they were being taxed. Isn't that the same way with what is going on right now? We're being taxed without no type of representation. Not for the people. It's not about the people. It's about agendas, because I look at Minneapolis and how they want to put bathhouses back in Minneapolis. Oh, shit. No, I don't want to. But it's like, we seriously have to make some kind of change. So let me get into this story about how an employee has been caught stealing, or is under investigation for stealing from Minnesota taxpayers.
A former state employee is now the subject of a criminal investigation following an explosive audit that found fabricated records and mismanagement of taxpayer-funded grants. Investigative reporter AJ Legault joins us with details. AJ?
Yeah, Julia, this criminal investigation is a fallout from that bombshell legislative auditor finding earlier this year. That audit revealed DHS employees had falsified and backdated documents related to the awarding and oversight of grants, and also that a manager authorized hundreds of thousands of dollars in payments to an organization and then days later quit and went to work for that same organization.
My understanding was people admitted to falsifying and backdating documents. Would you consider that criminal?
I mean, if you're asking me as a layperson, yes, that's not that. I mean, that.
In a fraud committee hearing Tuesday night, DHS Commissioner Shireen Gandhi was pushed for answers about what's happened since legislative auditor Judy Randall in January exposed agency employees falsifying documentation related to oversight of grants.
So these documents should exist. They didn't. We asked for them. All of a sudden, they now exist.
That is outrageous. It's unacceptable. It is creating the potential for fraud and other problems, and it needs to be dealt with accordingly.
The commissioner told lawmakers she can't discuss disciplinary actions taken, but acknowledged criminal investigators at the BCA are now involved.
So for DHS, when we found that out, we investigated it, and we turned all of our information over to the BCA for potential criminal investigation.
And DHS just reached out to me to clarify that while the commissioner was answering a question about employees who falsified records, the criminal investigation involves the former manager who authorized $672,000 in payments, then almost immediately took a job where she profited from the grant she'd approved.
Well, I think there's a real hunger for people to find that there are certain people being held accountable for all the fraud that happened in the state. Do you see this as a first step or kind of a one-off?
This is certainly the first state employee that we've learned is actively being criminally investigated, tied to the overall fraud situation that we've all been following here in Minnesota.
All right. Thank you, AJ.
Now, are we going to actually see any type of accountability? We know that there's a whole bunch of lawmakers, politicians, community leaders that have come out in documents, that have come out in reports, and we're still not seeing any type of accountability. We're still talking about it. We're still talking about it if we're going to hold people accountable. That's what's really wrong with our judicial, even when it comes to our lawmakers. That's a problem. And it's a problem that we don't want to have a discussion about. And I think that's really fucked up. I think that's really fucked up that we can't even have a heart-to-heart conversation. And the thing of it is, it's not even personal. It's not even personal. I don't even know most of these people. I don't know if you're a bad person or this. All I can see is paperwork throughout the years, rumors. Allegedly they were this. It's all, nothing is. what I'm going to say is, right, is, no, I'm not even going to fuck that allegedly shit. I know media want to come out here and protect their, I'm not doing all that. Because we know that people have been fraudulent in our own communities and we don't do shit. We don't do shit. Minnesota Promise Act. How many other supposedly Minnesota Safe Streets? That got over 30 million. Over 30 million. Over 30 million. And we don't see nobody being held accountable. We don't see nobody being held responsible. All we're being told is like, hey, we see all these fraud amounts. We see all this extra bullshit. But we don't see people being held accountable. We don't see people being held responsible. Because to me, there's a lot of wish-wash, back talk, and not enough action. Because this is what I really want people to understand, right? How can all this fraud go on? How? You had to have the help of legislators. You had to have the help of nonprofit organizations. You had to have help from development agencies like the Development Project down in Rochester, the DMC, Destination Medical Center. People had to be attached to that blue line or whatever kind of line they want to put in North Minneapolis, right on Broadway. Like, when are we actually just going to have an honest conversation that some of our lawmakers, even in the past, all the way to the present, have not been about people agendas? It's always about some type of population. Because this is one thing that really trips me out, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ shit, right? They want them freedoms. You already have them. You niggas want to be clarified as, and I don't really honestly give a fuck. I really don't care. I don't care if what you do in your own home behind a closed door is your fucking business. It ain't none of mine. But the minute you try to put that shit into kids, or you try to put that into legislation and ordinance, now I got smoke for you, because you don't want to just be able to partake in your own little fetishes, whatever you want to do, right? I won't even say a fetish, right? I won't even go that far, but your sexuality. I don't give a fuck. And I'm sure most Americans don't give a fuck. But the fact that everything nowadays is about that, it's like, how much more can we take until we see an American type revolution? Because they turned on their own government because they didn't have no representation. They were being taxed, but they had no type of representation. So the minute, because I really, really do think about this, like, we have been taxed so hard in Minnesota, and we don't have no type of representation unless you're a part of some of them, I say alphabet groups. And I'm talking about BLM, I'm talking about the NAACP. I'm just not talking about LGBTQ, right? I'm just not talking about gay, trans. I'm talking about all these people that want to put titles and labels to themselves instead of just looking at, like, we're all just human beings. We all have different colors. Here's the one thing that I really want people to know is that I don't care about our differences. I know I can tell by looking at somebody's skin color, but anybody's sexuality, I don't care about that. I'm not trying to fuck. I'm not trying to take you home. I'm not trying to go on no dates. None of that shit. So what you do in the privacy of your own home, I could care less. But when you start to groom or indoctrinate a community, I think everybody should have smoke. I think everybody should have a problem with their legislators, with their city councils, with their school boards. Because I can tell you right now, We're being taxed. And a lot of people in Minnesota have no representation. None. None. You have no type of work. They say they're for the working class. They say they're for us. They say they're for poor people. But when you look at the legislation, when you really break it down, is that shit for black people? Do you see shit for poor people? Because what I see is a bunch of loopholes. Loopholes to take advantage. And you know, this is the one crazy thing that I really want people to understand. They put that shit in our face, acting like we couldn't do nothing. That we couldn't do nothing. See, this is the one thing that I want people to understand, right? Because especially when it comes down to the police brutality part of it, I look at these Democrats because they say they're our allies, right? Even when they had control in Minnesota, you didn't see the relations between the police department and the community get better when they were in control. They could. Here's the one thing that I want people to understand, because there was a time in our House and our Senate that it didn't matter what Lisa DeMuth said. It didn't matter what Walter Hudson said. It didn't matter what Elliot Engin said. Because a lot of that shit that passed, that wasn't bipartisan. That wasn't bipartisan. We had literally a Democratic trifecta all the way to the governor. Shit, even after we had a Republican, MAGA, whatever you want to call it, Trump, when COVID kicked off. And then we voted in Biden. I didn't vote for him, but that's what America voted for, right? I'll just say that that's what, I know that there's a bunch of things with our election integrity that really go to that 2020 election. So here's the one thing that I can say is that during 2020, all the way up until Biden got out of office, we literally in Minnesota, they had a trifecta. Not even just a trifecta, because you go all the way up to the president. Most of that shit was all Democratic. It was all mostly Democratic. So what are those? Those are failed policies. We didn't get no kind of thing for reparations. We didn't even get anything for police brutality, because this shit still goes on today. And it's crazy to me. I think about mental health is so fucked up in our state, in our country, because that's who you see dying by the hands of police brutality. That's who is dying. Not people that committed crimes, not people that wanted to do bad in our community. A lot of them just had fucked up brains. Mental health is really real in America. No matter what population it comes from, if you're rich, there's all kind of stigmas to that shit. They look at you in a whole nother way. That's like one thing that I took from Red Wing was they not in my backyard, especially when it came to the homeless. And you had people there that say they wanted world peace. They would say they wanted everybody to be fed, but then they would scam. I won't even say scam, right? They found loopholes to take advantage of the system that we have. I'll go back all the way to Liz McGill, right? Because people always, I'm going to show you an explanation, right? So what I mean by Liz McGill is, who Red Wing did a program for the homeless. It's still, I think it's called Hope and Harbor or some shit. And they gave her all that money to be able to do that. She rented a house for the season so the homeless people could have somewhere to come and stay. There was rules, they had stipulations. I get that. Now, when it came down to the furniture, she moved in her furniture from her house and then put the new furniture in her home, her personal, not the home that was gonna that it would be used by the homeless people. Well, but her own home. So how is that not fraudulent? Or if you're buying food that's supposed to be inside of a home that is supposed to be used for people that are needing help, that have nobody. See, this is the one thing that I want people to understand. We're supposed to help these people. Our programs, everything that we're being taxed for, is supposed to help these people. Does it? Does our money be used in the right way when it comes to mental health? When it comes to policing? I'll say hell no. I will say hell no, because it's not about us. It's not about us. It's about the corporations, number one. It's not about us. Even though we're going to be sitting here in a minute, I give it another year, and people are crying now about their property taxes, their light bills, and just wait. It's going to get way worse than what it is right now. If we don't vote right, the shit is going to be so far gone that we're not going to be able to come back from it. The only thing that's going to fix that is a revolution. Yeah, history does repeat itself. And we have so many, all the way back to, because I know people talk about, America becoming their birthday 250th. But wait, it goes longer to that. It goes on longer than that. People, even because we'll say that a lot of people talk about 17, all the way from 1776 to 1865. They say, well, slavery was only for 90 years. What about 1619 all the way up until 1776? I won't even say 1776. We'll go all the way from 1619 to 1865. That's how long chattel slavery, 246 years. 246 years. That's how long chattel slavery was in America. And then from 1865 to 1965, we had black codes. That went all the way up to about 1890. And then during about, I'll say from like 1888 to 1890, we had the black codes. Then you went into the Jim Crow era. That lasted all the way to 1965. So yeah, America has come from a far place than what we used to be, because slavery used to be legal. Did that make it right? No, it did not make it right. Every population that is in America, because I know people, I got into a little debate. I think it's called Threads. And well, I don't know what they were. I don't know. I would just say they were African or whatever. And somebody said, well, y'all need to go back to your countries. That's what the comment was. Listen, this is where I'm from. I don't know. Here's the thing that I want people to know. Beyond my grandparents, I have no clue. Beyond the little DNA test that we take, I think there's like 6 countries from Africa that my DNA came back with. And it's like, that's not telling me distinctively of like, if you're Somali or if you're Nigerian, Ethiopian, it just gives me a whole bunch of shit. So only thing that I can go back is where my people came in that year. You can look back in the census reports and then you match that shit up. That's the only way you go about this shit. The only way. And then when you punch your little, I'm going to do an episode on that, because I have been doing that, putting my family tree together. And I want people to be able to look at mine, and I want to explain it, because when it came to my mom's side of the family, with my grandparents over there, I was able to go back, I mean, I think I'm at like 15, like the 1500s. And my grandpa's family came out of Norway, and my grandma's family came out of, I think it was Switzerland. I might be saying this wrong, but Like when you look at these things, because all you have to do is punch in who your parents are. And I can, you know what? Fuck that. I'm about to show it. What's that? Let me see what that app is. Okay, family tree. Because I mean, I really do find this interesting, and I think everybody should be able to do it. I think it would be wonderful for everyone. Let's see, sign in or Google. That might not be the right one. Yeah, see, that's not it. No. No, that ain't that one. So much. Let's see. While I do this, let me go into the next thing that I want to talk about. And that is, you have a person that's been a Democrat most of their life, and they're talking about the Democratic Socialists and how they've taken over the Democrat Party in the Twin Cities. And then not only just the Twin Cities, but they're branching out all over the states. And it's not just going to be New York City or Minneapolis. It's going to probably be Seattle, Portland. I just seen a thing about Texas, how the first time in over 30 years, that's probably going to go Democratic. They're going to have a Democratic governor. And that to me is crazy. So I want to go into, I think her name is Marjorie Stewart. And I want people to pay attention to this conversation, because especially where she's talking about how the DSA has taken over the Democrats. They want to be called the DFL, Democratic Farm and Labor, but is that really what it's about?
A lifelong Democrat has had enough with the DSA and creeping communism. Her candid message about how socialism has been spreading through Minnesota politics and what she's doing to fight back. Next. Marjorie Simon is my guest. Marjorie, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. Wonderful to be with you, Liz.
You have spent most of your life in Minneapolis, but you've noticed quite a change these past few years. I know you have a lot to say about it. One that actually prompted you to reach out to us for a little help. You're a lifelong Democrat. You wrote that you have been witnessing the takeover of the party by the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA as they're known, saying that, quote, they have ruined the party. So want to start there, Marjorie? What have you noticed, and when did this really start to concern you?
Yeah, well, I lived in suburbs until 2015, and then I moved to Uptown because I love the Uptown area. But when Aisha Chugtai became the council member, I noticed a disaster. She is a bona fide member of the Democratic Socialists of America. She doesn't like to respond to emails or calls or voicemails or anything. And she makes a lot of statements that don't make sense to me. So when I follow up with her, I get absolutely nothing. And where everything really came to a head was after George Floyd and the defund the police movement. And I've got a couple gripes with this. I happen to think that it was much safer here when we had more police in Uptown and they were monitoring things. And when all of a sudden we didn't have all those police, the crime rate soared around here. I was attacked once, and then I had a really dangerous near miss at a gas station where I was hemmed in by 3 different strange vehicles. And it was my errant car alarm that happened to go off that made them all skedaddle. But that's scary stuff, you know. And then at the Ward 10 convention, when Nasri Warsami, a Somalian, ran against Aisha, that was a complete disaster. We had a lot of Somalis attend who had never been to a caucus or a conference or a convention ever before. Many did not speak English, but they showed up in force. Well, the interpreter they chose spoke the wrong dialect, so we didn't have an interpreter for them. And so the convener, who was the founder of the DSA, just kept going and then had someone working on finding a different interpreter. But by the bylaws of the DFL Constitution, that meeting should have broken until they found an interpreter. And that to me is so inconsiderate to do that. And it led to more problems throughout the meeting. And ultimately, they heard people congratulating Aisha at lunch break for winning. And of course, there hadn't even been a vote yet. So that got the Somali population really, really unnerved. So then when they got up to give their speeches before the vote, it wasn't explained clearly by the convener that, hey, this is their speech. And then Aisha motioned all these people to get up on stage behind her. The Somalis thought, this is it. She won the election and we didn't even get to vote. And so then a fight ensued. And then the irony of it all is, what did the DSA members do? They called the police that they tried to defund, right?
You call this a chaotic and discriminatory caucus and party convention system. So from the sound of it, it seems though like the DSA, an outside voice, has gained influence and has been interrupting the Democratic Party and its proceedings. Is that your take on this? And if so, what do you think it's going to take to fix the situation and replace the chaos with common sense?
Well, I've attended so many caucuses and conventions now that are led by DSA people, and I've seen the results. You don't get what you were there to at least hope to get. That no one seems to really care. Then we had the Minneapolis convention where 100 people complained and they had a hearing and they ended the endorsement for Omar Fatah because of the chaos. They wanted a voting system that wasn't proven, and they tried an electronic voting system that failed during the convention, and it was a disaster. And I guess I would have thought after that convention that the DFL would have said, okay, enough of this. We need to switch to primaries. But that didn't happen.
So what do you believe it will take to fix that situation?
I have finally come to the conclusion, and I'm not happy about it, but I think it's the only thing that can change it. Let me preface this by the DSA have gained access because there are people that have very flexible schedules or a lot of time in their hands, so they get really, really involved. And they participate in the rules meetings and this meeting and that meeting, so they basically are running things. And the only way it can change, bearing in mind that in the present system of caucuses and conventions, only anywhere from 2 to 10% of our registered DFL voters can vote. So I think the only thing that can happen to get them to switch to primaries rather than caucuses is I have to sue them. And so I am right now talking to attorneys to find one that will help me. It's also a violation of the 1st, the 14th, and the 24th Amendments. And there's only 9 states in the entire United States that still have the caucus convention system.
Beyond what you've been seeing, Marjorie, polls do show that your party, the Democratic Party, has been shifting further to the left towards socialism. 66% of Democratic voters now holding a positive view of the DSA's political platform and more government ownership of the economy. For the record, here's what the DSA has to say for itself. We seek to eliminate and remedy racist oppression created and maintained by white settlers that undermines working class and community solidarity, while also acknowledging our own complicities in white supremacy and U.S. imperialism. So as a Democrat, what is your take on all of this? Is this something that you would support and vote for?
I think that the people that said they support that have never read the real platform. The Twin Cities chapter kind of hid that and buried it, but you can still find it if you dig in the national DSA platform. And other things in their platform are freeing all the incarcerated, eliminating police altogether. It goes on and on and on. And I think that if Democrats really understood what the DSA stands for, they know, hey, this is just not going to fly.
So we're not just talking about Marxist ideas and ideology anymore. In fact, DSA members make up a third of the Minneapolis City Council. Even more telling, Democratic Socialists now have an official leadership role on the City Council for the very first time in history. But speaking of history, socialism has proven to be a failed American experiment time and time again. Do you think that Democrats will change course and learn from past mistakes, or is it already too late?
I hope it's not too late, and that's why I want to sue the party so that we have actual valid primary elections where all Democrats can vote. Because I don't know who took that poll that 66% said they were fine with it, but I really believe if all DFL voters were getting out and voting, we would not be electing people to the city council and even the state legislature who ascribe to those policies.
Well, I will say not many Democrats reach out to Alpha News for help, so things must be bad when that happens. But seriously, though, here, Marjorie, with Marxism and socialism creeping into the Democratic Party, the consequences have been difficult to ignore. You have out-of-control crime, skyscrapers selling for pennies on the dollar, fraud practically anywhere you look in Minneapolis. But Democrats have been in control of Minneapolis for decades. In fact, the last Republican mayor elected in 1961. So even with all the problems with socialism and communism, you are still a Democrat? You're sounding a little bit like a Republican in this interview, though. What is your perspective? What do you expect from Democrats these days?
I was raised that when people are in need, you help them. But helping is not getting rid of the police. Helping is not responding to your constituents when they email you and ask a question. Helping is not when your representative on the city council flies off to Cuba when there's a major meeting for how to rejuvenate uptown. I hate to say it, but I think it's irresponsible. And somehow they think that's okay. I've written letters to not just Aisha, but the entire city council. I've gotten a response from Elliot Payne, who is the chair of the organization, and he totally ignored my concerns about not getting a response from my council member. So what do you do with that?
What do you say to people who say voting has consequences, and this is basically where Minneapolis has been led at this point?
Yeah. But the DFL thinks all this influx of young people, energetic, is so good. But what they're not measuring are all the Democrats I know who, when I invite them to a caucus, say, no way, that thing lasts forever. It's chaotic. It's disorganized. I don't want a thing to do with it.
Well, Marjorie Simon, thank you for sharing your political views. Thank you so much for joining me.
Shit crazy. Here's what I think this is also valuable to watch too. Saturday, there was a Fuck ICE protest. And there was a lady down there that was filming for TP USA, which used to be Charlie Kirk's organization. But here is, I want people to see this.
Administration said that they were going to be taken down. I had a 200-pound man that shoulder checked me. This woman is right up on me. She keeps touching me, and yeah, I'm here by myself. Stop. Okay. Stop. Leave me alone. Don't touch me. So anyways, you were being extremely aggressive here, and all I'm doing is standing here. All I've been doing is filming this. I didn't even come here today to you know, try and interview people. I came here to simply observe. Oh God. Hey guys. Hey, this is what a fucking paid agitator looks like. Hey, don't touch me. Hey, shut the fuck up.
What fucking race are you? Are you Asian?
Why are you saying I don't care about
Because you just said you're an American citizen.
Yes. People are being terrorized. It doesn't matter if they're a citizen or not, based on the color of their skin.
Actually, does we do have law and order in this country.
Women are getting raped. Do you understand that? You don't fucking give a shit about that? Do you have kids?
Why are you smiling?
Exactly why I covered the border extensively for the last 6
You
years.
don't know what the fuck. You don't know what. No. You don't know what the fuck. No, I'm telling you right now. You don't know what the fuck.
I don't know what's going on here. This woman came up to me and she's screaming in my face.
Man.
No, it's time to leave.
Shut the fuck up, bitch.
Hey, I got her? No! You off of me! Stop touching me!
Damn.
You fucking touched me!
Jesus Lord.
Leave me! I'm trying to leave!
I know, just go though. Look, we're trying to help you. Let's get you out of here. We're trying to leave. Let's go. Let's get you out of here. Let's go. Where are you going? Where do you need to go?
I don't have a car here. Where do you want me to go?
Jared, can we get her somewhere? We're trying to help you though. Like we helped you.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did. We stopped people from hitting you because you
I was standing here for an hour.
If we didn't help you, you would have been attacked.
And started attacking me.
We told them to stop.
I didn't do anything.
Coach, you're like trying to play victim so hard.
Okay, so I have all this on camera. It's fine. And because we're Minneapolis, you can't press charges against any of these people either. Anyways, so yeah, there we go. There we go, guys. There we go. Minneapolis, incredible. What am I gonna do?
Crazy, crazy, crazy. And to me, it's like, how is any of that okay? And that's what I'm saying. Like, why do people keep on going down to protest? I get it, right? I get it. You want to watch, you want to see, but why put yourself in danger? Because I can tell you this right now, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. So if you go into those areas, why are you going into those areas with only a couple of people and not enough to make a force? Because I would say you at least need 10 to 20 people. I would even say 30. If there would have been that amount down there, they wouldn't have fucked with her. They wouldn't have fucked with her. So it's like, why? You see all these things from right-wing, I don't know, I won't call them media or whatever, but right-wing influencers, right-wing propaganda, whatever. They go down there. The same thing. I felt uncomfortable showing this video, but I think to get a different take on it is what we need.
So I've really been thinking about Uptown Minneapolis, so I drove over here and we're gonna figure out how vibrant it really is. Would you like to come along? Awesome. So once again, it's really freaking cold, but I just want to prove that, like, literally every storefront is empty. Like, every single one. It's awful. That used to be the Gap, and there was a Victoria's Secret. This is Chino Latino. actually, this way long time ago was the Caribou Coffee. What's up, MPD? Even the cannabis can't make it. Empty, empty, empty. That whole stretch of 7 Points / Calhoun Square, empty, 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 empty. McDonald's can't even, McDonald's has its doors locked. I just walked past all of this, and I gotta tell you, like, this was the place to be. Like, the place to be. And today, the Minneapolis City Council allowed all drug paraphernalia to be legal, which basically just means drugs, because I'm not stupid enough to fall for your rhetoric. You need to look up what paraphernalia means. Really? So I said the crack pipe without the crack, but we all know what goes in it. Empty. Williams Pub, rest in peace. Empty. Oh, we missed this one. Empty. Lord knows Uptown's struggles. Empty. Empty. The old library is really sad because that's a really cool building and it's just sitting there, sadly. This bus depot is a good idea, right? Should we see more empty storefronts, or do you want to go down the mall? Tom Olson would love if we went down the mall. Shocker, retail space available, nobody's surprised. Now this is 5:44 p.m. at a time when normally everyone would be getting off work and having happy hour or whatever down here, right? Prime space, prime time for people to hang out with their friends. Again, I've gone down here a million times. This ridiculous, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it's insufferable. Somehow Bobby Bead survived. I'll show it to you. Look at this amazing relic from like 1995. West High School, which became the YWCA, which is now just a trash dump.
Oh, wow, that's neat.
So that's empty. Should we go up close? We highly recommend using locks, yeah. This is once vibrant, very highly used YWCA. It was the only gym in the area. LA Fitness was down the way, and of course you can see their apartment building. This is the other, this is Uptown. There's like downtown, there's Uptown. Uptown. D-E-A-D, dead. Should we look at more empty storefronts? Look at this beautiful mess. Oh really? Stronger together? Right. Empty. Empty. What's sad is young people, like my son's age, or in between my son and like me, like they don't know how great it was. Uncommon Ground has survived. I think it's probably because they own the building. Should I stop and get a coffee? Like, if you don't know how good it could have been. So at the time that this place was awesome, Duluth was a disaster zone because the mines had just closed. And I lived in Duluth for a while in college, and it was depressing there because everything was closed. This is now the opposite. Closed. Empty. Look, West High School. Over the years, our city has done some really stupid things, but destroying Uptown might top the list because Lake Street always had some challenges. It was always kind of some type of way with the corridor, although destroying Lake Street really kind of took work. But this is like epic failure because you have massive amounts of people, you have tons of young people who always want to socialize, and then you have wealth from Lake of the Isles just around the corner, and you F that up too. And in addition to making homeless encampments legal, a sex forest legal, and drugs legal, the city council is doing nothing to try to help revitalize business corridor. So I'm not sure how they think they're going to pay for it. Maybe Aureen will chip in on her honeymoon fund since she's getting married to a man who lives in Robbinsdale. See you out there.
Curious. Here's another one that I thought was interesting as well. If people don't know, her name is Fario Khalif, and she serves as both the leader of Somali Youth Link and a Minneapolis organization that patrols public spaces and works with Somali youth, and a registered foreign agent. Wow. But then again, Minnesota don't care.
We also demand.
She works for the Somalian government,
She wants to open up an office for the Somalian government in all 50 states. She's about to tell you what city she's working with.
I'm going to say, hey, we're watching you. We are here to make sure you don't get into trouble. Safety for all. madaxweynaheena xasan sheekh maasha allah shaqada oo xoog leh ula wado iyo wada kaashiga dadka ku nool galmudug hadday noqoto North America waxaad ka dhawaajisay labada gobol sida St. Paul and Minneapolis maantana aan idinku imaaday oo aad ugu faraxsanahay inaan soo visit garay community register Minnesota kale ma ahan farxiyo waxay aad iyo aad u jeceshahay sida all kontonka magaaladood.
That inspired Faria Khalif to start Somali Youth Link to work hand in hand with local police departments.
At times they'll come to us and say, hey, I think this is a police matter, can you deal with it?
dad badan ay la soo xiriiray sida Atlanta ama ha noqoto Ohio or Seattle, Washington DC rabaan inaan xagga ugu imaado aan la kulmo sida hadda maanta idinku imid oo kale North America kaliya ma ahan United States and Canada way ku jirtaa ko saan u caawinaa galmudug saan ula shaqeynaa madaxweyne qorqor saan horumarkiisa iyo danta uu ka leeyahay horumarka galmudug anaka dhan aan wada qabanaa
aad ayuu mahadsan tahay Farxiyo Khaliif ayay ahayd wakiilka guud.
I didn't understand what a lot of what she said or whatever, but there is a conversation.
She works for the Somalian government.
A conversation that happened, I think it was Friday. But this was Lou Ragoose, and he's talking about all the fraud and really about the updates and the news about these fraud cases. And a lot of this shit people I think should be shocked. There's some shit that people shouldn't be. But when are we gonna see any type of accountability from our politicians? That's like really the big question. When are we gonna see any type of accountability from our elected officials?
Hey, everybody, welcome to Breaking the News Plus on this Thursday night. We're going to go where we've gone many times before because it's important in the state of Minnesota. We're going to talk about fraud, feeding our future specifically. And I know that you may tire of these, but they are important, and what happened today is significant. To talk about it is the captain of our Feeding Our Future fraud reporting and all other fraud reporting, really, Lou Ragoose. Hey, Lou, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so today, Gandhi Mohammed. Why is that person? What's the story behind him and Feeding Our Future that matters today?
So in 11 days, Gandhi Mohammed was going to stand trial, another multi-week fraud trial in federal court for the Feeding Our Future case. And instead, he changed his mind to plead guilty. Now, he comes from this family of fraudsters that I've reported extensively about over the last month or so, led by his sister, whose name is Ikram Mohammed, who, I mean, each person played a role. Ikram recruited two brothers, a sister, her mom, and her best friend, all to take part. And she worked for actual Feeding Our Future, the nonprofit. So she had kind of an inside track. But, you know, the same pattern of things where, you know, they had a place where they could pretend to serve meals at. They had a nonprofit that would be allowed to bill for it. They had a fake food distribution company that's putting fake invoices for it. They had all corners of the fraud scheme, all within their family. And they personally, the group of them, stole $14 million.
Wow.
Now, Gandhi, the last one remaining, his role in the whole thing, by and large, was he owned these buildings.
Okay.
And so they would claim to serve meals at his buildings, and then he would charge them rent, and that way they laundered the money through him. He took $1.4 million in rent checks that really was fraud money that he was laundering.
Okay.
And so, and he did more beyond that, and we would have learned a lot more about that at the trial, but he pleaded guilty just to the money laundering part of it, and they agreed to drop the rest of his charges, which is normal in a plea deal. But there was one thing in his plea deal that is unique and worth talking about.
Okay, what's that?
They agreed not to prosecute him for any other cases that they're currently investigating, broadly like that. And why that's significant is he owns other companies that build Medicaid. Now, if you want to separate these two things, Feeding Our Future is this meal program fraud that the money came from the USDA during the pandemic, supposedly to feed children in need. Medicaid is all these other programs that we've been talking about recently in Minnesota, including the autism centers and, you know, the adult daycares and stuff like that. He according to my numbers, and my numbers are not final, I'm still waiting for more from the Department of Human Services, but he's received at least $36 million in Medicaid money. We don't know how much, if any, is fraud, because he's not charged with fraud.
Okay.
Clearly he was under investigation, though.
Potential fraud.
Yes.
Okay.
And with this, at least now we know he's not going to face charges for any of that if there is indeed fraud within his Medicaid reimbursement program.
So he pleads guilty in his role in the Feeding Our Future scheme, and then he gets the part of the deal for him to plead guilty is to not really excuse the rest, but we're not going to prosecute on the rest.
Right.
Will the expectation then by the U.S. Attorney's Office be that he gives a heck of a lot of information to them, informs them on other things?
Those are the, closed door negotiations that we don't know about, but I don't think that we can assume that either.
Okay.
His sister, Ikram Muhammad, who pleaded guilty a couple of weeks ago, is the only other person that's gotten the same deal so far. So she and her brother both got the same deal. They both had their hand in a had their hands in a lot of other money. They're not going to be prosecuted for that, just in order to get them to plead guilty in Feeding Our Future. And they will go to prison. Ikram, the sister, will probably get around 10 years. We'll have to see. Gandhi's going to get about 3 years.
That's it?
That's it.
And so to Minnesotans that are hearing this tonight and they say, I'm pissed. They should get more. We should prosecute for this other stuff if it's actually fraud in Medicaid. What do you think the thinking is behind the U.S. Attorney's Office in offering a plea deal here?
Well, my assumption is that they are looking at a lot of Medicaid fraud cases. This is, where we've estimated about $1 billion, and Joe Thompson put out the number of possibly up to $9 billion. There's a lot of potential charges within that fraud. Hardly any of them have been charged so far. Just a small handful of housing stabilization defendants and autism program defendants that we've reported really extensively about. But I would expect dozens, with the scale that the fraud is, dozens of charges coming within the next year or two here. They haven't gotten there yet, and they're still working on these cases from Feeding Our Future. That case first started getting charged in 2022.
Bam.
So we're 4 years into the charges on that so far. They need to get past those so that they can devote their time and attention to the other ones. That's my impression of what's going on right now at the U.S. Attorney's Office.
So this man, Mr. Muhammad, and his sister, who you covered two weeks ago, they're going to prison. Do they have to pay any restitution?
Yes. And so I don't have all the restitution numbers in front of me, but Gandhi Muhammad will have to pay back that $1.4 million. What they end up doing is they come up with, they call it a loss amount, and that is what each individual person is personally responsible for. So if you remember, there was a story last week that was kind of controversial because the guy only got 1 year and 1 day in prison. Well, his restitution amount is like a few $100,000. He's not into the millions. So his personal loss amount is much less than like these suspects that have gotten like 18 years in prison. Well, they were responsible for like $46 million. Wow. So it's like there's a big difference. Not every, they all played a role, but not every defendant is the same. And it's the same judge who's looking at all of them, Judge Nancy Brazel, and she's determining, where they fall in the spectrum. And there's sentencing guidelines that kind of guide her. She doesn't have to go with them per se, but she's not going to give 10 years in prison to someone who stole way less money than the next person, for example.
Yeah, because we've got this is such a huge case of fraud that you have to look at it from that spectrum outlook. So back to trying to, clear the mud of what you said. Is it your opinion then that the U.S. Attorney's Office is, I think you said it in this way, that they're trying to get past these Feeding Our Future cases so they can get to the Medicaid fraud cases?
That's what I believe.
Okay.
So there is another trial that's scheduled for June, and the U.S. Attorney's Office was really trying to delay that one because they had this April trial, the Gandhi Muhammad trial, and they said, we can't be on trial for 4 weeks and then immediately start another trial. It won't get anything done. The judge didn't exactly have sympathy for that.
Is it because of staffing, or are they just?
Well, yes,
reason?
that's a big part of it. Because of Joe Thompson and the rest of the fraud team that left, I'm not going to minimize, they still have really good prosecutors that are still there that are working on the fraud cases. And they are getting help from the DOJ in the form of additional investigators to go through to financial auditors, for example, to the time-consuming stuff to go through bank accounts and everything. They are getting help with that. But the trial lawyers, the ones that are going to try the cases, they're just going to be in court week after week after week with no time to get down and work with a grand jury to bring charges for new stuff.
Right.
And I think there is a lot of pressure now, especially it's an administration change. The original Feeding Our Future cases were charged under the Biden administration. Now that we're under the Trump administration, I'm sure that from DOJ they want to start seeing charges on new fraud cases because then it's their accomplishment.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the office, these attorneys, they operate pretty nonpartisan, and we've seen some indications at the top, the U.S. attorney with a little bit of change in that. But by and large, these guys that go to the courtroom and prosecute, they're like civil servants. They're not like, I want this because I'm a Republican or a Democrat. It's not like that for those guys. So they are working very much straightforward. But when I talk about the bigger picture in the administration, they want accomplishments that reflect
They want to see
their leadership.
conviction Medicaid fraud
Yes.
under our administration, under our U.S. attorney that we appointed for X amount of time in prison.
Yeah.
And so you think the case of Ghazni Mohammed taking this plea today could signal some sort of transition moment that we get to Medicaid fraud and we'll see these new kinds of prosecutions start to come?
I don't think 2 years ago we would have seen immunity being offered to any extent. I mean, to me, when I saw it with Ikram Muhammad, I started talking with attorneys and I'm like, is that a normal thing? And they're like, on background, no, it's not a normal thing. It's good lawyering on the defense. That's how they got that good negotiation.
Because the defense knows they're basically, they have so many cases they've got to get to.
They have an
and they've gotta
advantage
move
right
on.
now. The defendants are in a better place. The remaining defense are in a better place now than they were a year ago. They have a little more negotiation power than they did a year ago. And that's simply because these cases are so old now and there's a need to get done with them so that they can do something new.
Is there any timeline? Because you referred to that too, and we feel it as the Minnesota public, not that we don't want all of these prosecuted to the full extent of the law, but that we're getting so far down the line here. It's obviously just made for TV kind of stuff that you wish they could all be prosecuted at once. But you said from the beginning, I remember, that this could last 5 years, 6 years to prosecute all these cases.
Yeah, it is. There is a statute of limitations to charge.
Okay.
And then once somebody's charged, they can ask for a speedy trial and they can, get it out there as quick as possible. But there's not a statute of limitations beyond like the speedy trial rules as far as like bringing the case to a trial, except for the older it gets, the witnesses are not as good as they were. Their memories are not as good. Maybe people pass away or move. It's you need to bring a case in somewhat of a timely fashion in order to be successful.
Right. And I'm thinking with some of these fraudsters, wouldn't they have already dipped out of Minnesota?
A lot of them have stayed.
Oh,
and
really?
So, yeah. And just to mention, about the specific defendants here. So Ghazni Mohammed, we learned today in court, not only is he an American citizen, but he's a war veteran. He served for the U.S. military in the war in Iraq. And he has an MBA. And so he has all the tools to be extremely successful without having to commit fraud. So that's part of the tragedy of that case in particular. To compare to yesterday, there was a 65-year-old man who got sentenced to about 3 years in prison, clearly played a role in he ran this ballroom, the Benedier Ballroom on Lake Street, and allowed these fake meals to be served there. Up until he was sentenced yesterday, he really didn't have any remorse. And I mean, it was pretty remarkable. Like the biggest thing he regretted, he said, was he took out a loan from the fellow fraudster. It didn't really make much sense. But then his attorney is Ryan Pasiga, who's in my opinion, one of the best attorneys. And he was trying to explain that he's not a sophisticated guy. And he just thought that everyone was making money during the pandemic, so if everyone's doing it, he was going to be involved in it too.
That's like looting, basically.
Yeah, and so if you are to believe that, and maybe you don't believe it, but if you are to believe it, it shows what a range there is in the mindset of these defendants. Someone like Ghazni Mohammed, super smart, totally knows what he's doing, and then this guy allegedly was just going with the
Just
flow.
along for the ride.
Yeah.
Luber Goose, we thank you for the latest on
You're
Feeding Our Future. It looks like we'll go into Medicaid in the weeks and months to come. We appreciate it.
Yep.
I think that's crazy because I think, especially what Lou said when it came to statute of limitations. I think we'll see a lot of that when it comes to Feeding Our Future. Because the Medicaid or the housing stabilization shit, that's still is ongoing. That's still shit that they are. To me, there's still fraud going on, and there's a lot of fraud that they haven't discovered or shit, are even trying to hold people accountable. And that to me is crazy as hell, because when are we going to see not just because there's plenty of stories out here right now that me, Robert, Marcus, Philip Parrish, and other people have been talking about for years. And I mean, some of us were seeing this shit firsthand. And I didn't want to believe it. I really did try to see when I got off the couch, when George Floyd happened, and that's what made me want to get involved. And the people I was hanging around, I really thought those were the people that were going to make change, So I got into learning how to do ordinances and legislation. I wanted to learn, but I could see the people that I was around that I'll say it, I was following. But when I started to see fuck shit is really when I started to watch and observe. And I seen a lot of fuck shit. I seen a lot of fuck shit. And a lot of people, well, you're just mad because you're just jealous. For what? What you niggas don't understand is I could have took the money. I didn't have to do any of this shit. I could have chose a life. I'm not going to say that I wanted. And I won't even say I would have been content in it. But it was a life that sure the hell I wouldn't probably have to go through the turmoils that I've been through. But I chose a higher standard. I chose the high road. I didn't want to be like these motherfucking people that just do anything. I definitely didn't want to be like that. That's not how I wanted to be. I wasn't a person that wanted to just stand for anything like all these motherfuckers that are out here doing. I wanted to stand for something. And that's why, especially when it came to my family tree, I wanted to learn more about my culture, more about my ancestors. So that's when I found out about Willie Francis. That's when I found out about, the sugarcane farms being taken from the Francis family. Or I can't think of her name right now, but I also did have a lesbian cousin, and she did a lot of activism out in California. But I wouldn't have known that if I'm not searching for these people. I mean, it's what I can say about my mom and dad's. I mean, not my mom and dad's, but about my mom's. It's being able to see that family history. Because to be honest, I thought when my uncle, I shouldn't say he was my great uncle, but when my grandpa's brothers, when he passed away, I thought there was only like one, or I don't think there was that many left. But I didn't know until like the last one just didn't pass away till like 2017. I never knew that. I think I did get to, when I was younger, I got a chance to meet a lot of the Gunderson family. I went on the road trips during the summer. And I'll tell you like this, my grandma and grandpa were not the best drivers. But I didn't mind traveling with them. Seen a lot of shit that I wouldn't see in North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. But I also did become, I won't say that, because if I would have listened to my grandpa's advice, if I would have listened to my grandpa trying to steer me into a better direction, I wouldn't have done the shit that I'd done when I was 17, 18, 19, because I thought that shit was cool. I thought stealing cars were cool. But that's the one thing people will say, oh, well, you're just a product of your environment. Well, that's all my product. That's all my environment offered. Stealing cars, drug dealing, being a pimp. You could make it out of there with the right decisions, with the right people around you. Yeah, there was tons of people that made it out of where I live, that went on to make successful careers. But there's some of us who never We never had that chance. We never had that opportunity because some of us had made bad decisions when we were younger. I'm talking about we were like a teenager when those decisions shouldn't be held against you. But they are, and that's the one thing that a lot of people cannot understand in Minnesota is that even when we go back into the early 90s and late 80s, is that we had a problem with not only our judicial system, but our children's services when it came to CPS and all that other shit. Because I'll say it like this. I'm sure I'm not the only child that their mother signed away. I'm sure I'm not the only child in Hennepin County during the late 80s and early 90s. My mom thought she was getting me help. She didn't know that she was signing her rights away, that I would become a ward of the state. She wasn't thinking that. And that's why one thing that I can say about my mom is she's the person that got me to read the fine print. Don't just sign shit without reading it, because those situations happen. They bamboozled her when she thought they were going to help. But that's not the way it went. And that's the way it's always been in Minnesota. And I can, even the past of like my ancestors, I just talked about this yesterday. We were tweeting, Reverend Christopher had tweeted something, and it was about slavery. And I found so much out about my ancestors and how much turmoil and how much tribulations they went through, because it wasn't easy. It's still, do I have more rights and freedoms than, let's say, like my Uncle Willie Francis, who was executed not once but twice in Louisiana? Because I can tell you like this, is that even Reverend Christopher talks about this, of like when he was coming up as a child, and there were white only, colored only water fountains, bathrooms. That's the one crazy thing that people don't want to have a discussion about, right? Is even when it came, we didn't really have two gender bathrooms. We had two colored bathrooms. We had colored and whites only. It wasn't down to really gender. I'm sure it did. I haven't really seen many pictures where it went into like genders, like men, girls, boys, girls, whatever. I've seen it always as white only, black only, colored only. That's like how I even get into a discussion about, sundown towns, or people don't even want to have a discussion about Napa, because you had Napa signs in towns, but no Napa stores. That's because Napa meant something else at that time. No African people allowed. No African people allowed. Nobody wants to have discussions about that. And that's the one thing that, do I feel like I'm old? No, I don't feel like I'm old. I don't feel like, I'll just tell you like this, is that certain things have happened in my family history that I don't even think that my family, or even like my dad and some of my uncles, which his brothers and, sisters, would have we been in that situation. Because I can tell you right now, after what happened to Willie Francis all the way back in 46, 47, 48, and 49, those were bad years for the Francis family. Talking about my grandma, Marie, that's what people don't want to have a discussion about. Because at that time, I'll tell you like this, it didn't matter if you committed a crime. All they cared was, were you white or black? Because if you were black, they were going to do instant justice. They were going to do street justice. And that's been going on for years. We still see today, maybe not in the same way that we've seen lynchings or hangings, but we still see that shit all the way in 2026. And we still can't have open and honest discussions about history. You know, because that's the one thing that I want people to know is we shouldn't tell people fairy tale stories. Get people the truth. Because once we start lying to our loved ones about, you know, especially when it comes to our kids, oh, there's no Santa Claus. Like, Santa isn't real. We're Santa. You know, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. These are all little fucking stories and all these little white lies. We say it's for the better. But is it really for the better? Or is it that we don't want to have that open and honest discussion? That's what I want people to think about. Do we really want to have an open and honest discussion? Even when it comes down to gender. That's the whole reason why they say men can have babies, because you see trans men getting pregnant. A woman going to be a man who has a uterus, who has a vagina, because how are you supposed to get somebody pregnant with a penis? The only thing that men can have is little shit babies when they got to go poop. That's the only thing that comes out. Poop and pee, and then maybe some vomit. That's the only thing that's coming out. We don't have, that's the one thing, the blessing about having different gender roles, right? Is that only women can experience that birth. They can only understand of having a C-section or even having an epidural or having that connection with the child. And that's the one thing that a lot of people don't understand too, especially when it comes from, I'll just say, like, especially in the poor communities, because everybody thinks they have a right when they have a baby. Mothers do, not the men. Mothers do. They make us have to go to court. They make us have to all this extra shit to say that that baby is ours. They don't make it easy. I will say this: they do not make it easy for men who are not married to the mother. That's just the straight up truth. That is the straight up truth. They do not make it easy. But I'm gonna get out of here for today. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And I will talk about more about how we're going to do this. There's not much session. There's not much time left in the legislative session. I do really want to get into that. And after the legislative session is over, what are we going to do? Are we just going to talk about it? Or are we going to try to put together and organize and strategize this fucked up thing that we live in Minnesota? So with that being said, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Like I said, same time, same place. And here goes Don Tripp, Cold Sweats, and I will see y'all tomorrow.
Yeah, waking up in cold sweat. Waking up in cold sweat. Waking up in cold sweat. Waking up in cold sweats with my mind in a maze. I pay the price for every dime I done made. Never stop grinding, I could die any day. So I'm making sure my baby still shine in the shade. Still can't forgive, yeah, I tried, but I can't. And even if I could, shit, the vibe ain't the same. Truthfully, we never going back to how it used to be. You never gonna get another chance to make a fool of me. Did it on my own, they said I couldn't make it happen. They said I could make it rapping. New flash, all my homeboys ain't rappers. And I don't do the back and forth shit, I'm old fashioned. I've seen things niggas' dreams couldn't fathom. Dealing with the pies, but we never learned fractions. My stepdaddy might as well been Joe Jackson. The way the nigga beat us, till we start bringing home heaters. Cause mama won't leave them. Shit, mama raising 3 kids, she might need them to this day.